right, good morning, everybody. Today is Friday, June 22nd, 2014. And this is Before the First Cup with Jules and Lady Pitbull on UCY.TV. Good morning, lady. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, I'm better. It's Friday. I
That's
literally
good.
just rolled out of bed. I have no coffee in me because I don't even have a cup sitting on my desk yet.
Aw, you're going to have to remedy that.
Yeah, well, I usually get up with enough time to at least zip upstairs, pour a cup, and zip back down, but I didn't today.
Well, I've got an interesting article that Hecty just dropped in the chat room all ready to go.
Oh,
if you want to do that, I could start on that right away.
Oh, awesome. Thanks,
It is
Hecty.
awesome. Hecty rules.
A cup of coffee. All right,
Yeah, go for it.
Right back. All right.
Right on. Well, guys, it's Friday! Oh my god. I'm so glad it's Friday! And I don't know, I may have something in the works to actually make it to Freedom Palooza. I'm not sure. So, I'm talking to good old my friend Mark, and I may ride up with them, or I don't know. I'll have to see. I'm working it out, though, so we'll see what happens. I hope I do make it there. We shall see. Alright, let me get to this article, like I said. Okay, here we are. The Pentagon orders 500 new state-of-the-art spy glasses. Isn't that nice? So now they can wear these things on their heads, and all that Wi-Fi and all this crap can go straight into their brains. They're going to wrap their heads around with this these glasses, and they can be programmed, or they can be whatever. I mean, they're definitely getting radiated from these things, that's for sure. I know that. Alright. The Pentagon has reportedly placed an order for 500 high-tech wearables that will give Google Glass a run for its money. Oh, isn't that sweet? Thank you, Hecty. According to Defense One technology editor Patrick Turner, the United States Department of Defense is acquiring a cache of state-of-the-art X6 glasses from San Francisco's Osterhout Design Group, sounds German, that will give, quote, listen to this, listen to this is, totally amazing, that will give, quote, spooks in the field an intelligence edge over everybody else, unquote. That's hilarious first thing in the morning, man, let me tell you that. Alright. Defense One got to get an up-close and personal demonstration of the new DoD gear during a recent symposium at the Defense Intelligence Agency's Washington, D.C. headquarters, Turner wrote, and walked away with more than just an eyeful. I'm sure they did. According to the website's report, the wearables take current consumer-grade technology to the next level by offering an array of services that without a doubt seem more fit for a spy or military sniper than the nerd next door. That's interesting. Alright, here's the quote. Defense One looked through the glasses at a static, two-dimensional map, and suddenly structure appeared in 3 dimensions related to objects of interest, Turner wrote. With that particular app, the glasses send information to a server that then processes the image against others to determine the location depicted. The glasses then present data from the database virtually in the form of structures, special instructions, clues, etc. Special instructions, yeah, I'm sure. The view was smarter and more useful than what you would see with Google Glass, but didn't get in the way of the user's ability or the ability to actually see like a clunky virtual reality headset. Oh, that's interesting. Alright, so they're rolling this shit out, you guys. Another part of the demonstration Turner added involved testing out a third-party facial recognition program that allows the X6 wearer to take a glimpse at someone nearby, then match their likeness with any individual contained within a database. In theory, the Pentagon could program the biometric information of any service member or insurgent onto a file into a database linked to the glasses, which would then allow soldiers in the field to see details about a person in front of them right off the bat. Oh, isn't that wonderful? Quote, what they want with the glasses is to bring a lot of different applications. Facial recognition technologies from images is just one example. Lynn Shure, Vice President of General Dynamics Information Technology, told Defense One. The deal between the DoD and Osterhout Design Group comes within weeks of an agreement which Microsoft acquired IP assets from the California company for a reported $150 million. In terms of what we're doing at ODG, we don't make weapons, we make things that can help people do their jobs. Founder Ralph Oosterhout told TechCrunch News back in March. Oh, isn't that so wonderful? So now these guys are going to run around with this Wi-Fi strapped into their heads, and for certain, I'm sure, certain select people, spooks, as they called it in the article, they'll be able to have, like, their orders directly injected into these devices here. And what I will do is I will take this and I will put this in chat right now, because they look just like regular glasses. If I can find the freaking chat. There it is. Yay! So these guys, they're gonna be able to, like, just do whatever. They'll be able to mind control whatever their target is with these glasses, and they're gonna be able to just on the fly put in codes or whatever the mind control crap that they've got on these spooks. They're going to be able to just do this stuff on the fly, implant whatever command they'll want to give these guys, and they're going to just have instant downloads into their brains, whether to maybe abort a mission or carry out an assassination or, place whatever the hell their freaking mission's going to be, man. This crap is crazy. It's horrible, and it's nuts, and I don't know. I think they're taking this crap way too far. Way too far!
Tell us how you really feel.
That's right. Damn it. It sucks! And it pisses me off.
I see a story here titled, Dildo-Wielding Boys Teach Gun Safety in Viral Ad. If they find it, they'll play with it.
What? That sounds like a combination of, like, a pedophilia thing, and, oh my god, and trying to, I don't know, man, that's...
No, it's pretty hysterical looking, actually.
Wow.
Two kids with helmets on, like summer vacation, two kids with helmets on running around in the front yard, smacking each other with something. They both got multicolored toes in their hands.
Are you serious?
Each other with them like they're playing swords or something.
Oh my god.
It's fucking hysterical. The two mothers are standing on the porch, and the one's got her hand over their mouth going, oh, yeah. Using the tagline, if they find it, they'll play with it.
Oh,
so
no.
Always lock up your guns.
Oh.
Uned.
Jeez. Oh my god, that's crazy. Funny.
Says, In the ad, a young mother is picking up her son from a play date. As the two boys race around the house and as the mothers chat, the two boys burst through the front door and into the front yard, engaging in a sword fight with the discovered sex toys in front of their startled and embarrassed mothers. Ad comes from gun safety advocates, a group called Evolve, founded in the wake of listen to this, the 2012 Sandy Hook shooting. According to their website, Evolve does not take a position on the legislative side of gun debates, but instead looks to reduce gun violence by encouraging gun owners to use common sense when owning weapons. Claiming to represent both gun owners and non-gun owners alike, Evolve is attempting to build a public campaign around gun safety, removing from the acrimony between the NRA and the so-called gun grabbers. According to Evolve co-founder Rebecca Bond's LinkedIn page, Evolve is a group of gun owners and non-gun owners alike who are only interested in one thing: firearm safety and the reduction of violence through personal behavior and education, and not through medication. Your little boy, take some of these.
They're saying in the chat that you're barely audible.
Really?
Yeah.
Hold on, I guess we're going to have to turn up the volume. How is that even possible that Jules could be barely audible? I don't know. All right, hold on. La, 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 la. La, 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 la. La, la, la. I don't even know where the volume is. Come on. La, 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 la. I'm showing I'm really loud. All right, here, let's see.
Dan saying, nope, not right.
La, 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 la. It's going to get real loud real fast. This mic is like so damn touchy. I can, that's going to like blast out eardrums now.
There we go.
Is that better?
Yes.
Is that really loud?
I don't think so.
What's so bad is that it's just like the tiniest hair, and it blows things out with this mic. And I like to get up real close to the mic, and then I start to get excited and I yell.
That's what he was saying to me the other day.
Well, yeah, so that's kind of the problem. That's why I turned it way down, because everything sounds way too loud and like I need to take a pill.
There, everybody's saying, yay, that's good now.
Okay, I didn't do anything after the first little move, so hopefully.
Yeah, that's good, yeah.
Alright.
Yay!
Well, you guys missed the dildo story, sorry.
The dildo story. I'd like to know what dildos and guns have in common, really. I don't see the correlation.
You can have a sword fight with both. I'm going to put that story in chat.
You're supposed to lock up your dildos, too?
I guess.
Is that what it implies?
With a biometric hand safe.
Yeah. Oh
I am going to share this on the WTF page. I mean, if for nothing else, the picture itself is worth 1,000 words. It's hysterical. Oh, boy.
Oh, my gosh.
You see the picture? It was on Raw Story.
Oh, those kids are old enough to know what the hell that looks like. Come on.
Oh, who knows?
Well, I don't carry things like that in my house anyway.
What's that, kids?
No, dildos. I do not have anything like that in this house.
Here's something. Did you see that 66% of all Russians wish that Vladimir Putin would remain president after 2018?
Interesting.
And, you know, he's already been in, we looked at this the one time, he's already been in like 10 or 15 years. Because when he was president first, then he did 2 terms as president, I believe, and then he became their equivalent of our Secretary of State.
Mm-hmm.
And then he did that for a term, and that was required by law. And then that's where he had, was it Mendov? One of them. I think he was the president. I don't remember. But Putin was then the sidekick, and then he slid back into the seat of president again. So now apparently they want him to stick around. And before that, I mean, he was the head of the CIA forever.
KGB.
Yeah, our equivalent of the CIA.
Yes.
Can you tell I'm still sick?
Uh-huh. You sound like you're not feeling good at all.
I'm not feeling good at all. But
Aww.
I know my munchkin really, really, really wants to go see Gramps today and go down to the beach and do fossil hunting, but I don't think it's going to happen because I still have like 8 more shows to cut for the weekend.
Aww.
Energy to do it, so I don't know.
Maybe tomorrow.
Maybe.
Aww.
So anyway, here, let me read about Putin. 66% of Russian citizens want Vladimir Putin to continue at his presidential post for the next term. The latest opinion polls show respondents especially praised his efforts in foreign policy and strengthening the Russian economy. No, the Russian military. Wow. Like, words are reading themselves, too. According to the Public Opinion Foundation, 2/3 of Russians also claim that Putin's policies were fully in line with their own interests. And the number rose from 36% in September of 2012 to 66% in June this year. While, of course, Obama's numbers are just like they opened up the toilet sewer hole and they flushed it. Which I think is hysterical.
Yeah.
Anyone know what happened to Zori, by the way?
She said she had a really, really bad stomach ache.
Oh, okay.
I told her to message you, and she obviously she didn't.
I didn't see one, but...
Oh, okay. Well, she messaged me. She said she felt yucky, so...
I tend to not read my messages because they distract me when I'm on air and people say...
I see.
So anyway, that's all. I don't feel like reading anymore.
That's all right. So obviously there's no what do they call that? Not statute of limitations.
I don't know, but let's skip it because I don't know anything about it. And I really can't be bothered to read up on it.
Okay, that's all right. Let's see. We can just BS the whole time. We can do that.
I'd rather not, but...
Oh, all right. Whoa!
I need to get my air conditioner on is what I gotta do. It's off here.
Oh, this is interesting. Pelosi to greet new arrivals at the border. So what's she gonna do? Stand there and smile and say, hey, welcome to America. Oh, this looks pretty nasty. Nice and short. Want me to read it? Let's see. I'll just go ahead and read it. Nancy Pelosi to travel the border to meet detained minors. Oh, isn't that nice? She's going to stand there and smile and have open arms. Oh, Nancy, we love you so much. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi will travel to the southern border of the U.S. on Saturday to be briefed by Customs and Borders Protection on the flood of unaccompanied minors entering the country. The California Democrat will also meet with a group of children held at the South Texas Detention Facility. Oh, she's going to meet with them. How humanitarian-like. Here we go. And here's what this bitch said. The humanitarian crisis unfolding across our nation's southern border demands Congress come together and find thoughtful, compassionate, and bipartisan solutions, Pelosi said. We must ensure our laws are fully enforced. Sure, yeah, how you doing that? So that due process is provided to unaccompanied children and the safety and well-being of unaccompanied children is protected.
Wait, we're offering due process when they're not even citizens, but for the actual citizens, we're bombing the crap out of them with drone bombs and not offering them due process?
Right!
That's what she just said. I saw a story yesterday, too, outside of San Antonio in one of the military facilities where they're holding some of those kids. There was a confirmed case of swine flu.
Oh, really nice.
Yeah, well, they were bringing in a few hundred rounds of vaccination to take care of them all against their will.
That's right.
Put on a seatbelt.
Unbelievable. This is unfreaking believable.
You know, I'll tell you what I bet they're doing right now. I bet that they are testing real time those civilian internee manuals.
Oh, you know it. Absolutely. I've been saying that the whole time. This is all for going to be the quote unquote illegal immigrants. And they're going to all put them in the FEMA camps, and they're going to test all these facilities out. They're going to put them in operation. They've already been staffing them for the past 3 years.
Yep.
They're ready to go.
Ready
or
to
just
roll.
Just such a crisis.
Hey, by the way, I yesterday, after watching that video clip about the Osama bin Laden action figure that the CIA made where his face melted off and he was a demonic character and it was all made in the name of scaring young children away from Al-Qaeda, I thought, oh my God, I want one of those. Do you know how badly... I heard that they only made a run of 200 before it got shut down.
Oh.
Do you know how much one of those are worth?
Hell
Maybe
yeah.
some dumbass would have one for sale on eBay and not know it, which of course they would, but I did a search on eBay for a Osama bin Laden action figure, and now every single time I open Facebook, not only down the side in the ads is there Osama bin Laden action figures, but as I'm scrolling down through, there's a picture of his action figure and it says, do you remember this? It's from eBay. Do you still want this item?
Wow.
But so now I have Osama bin Laden action figures all over my Facebook page.
Oh, no.
They put me on the red list.
That's right. And they're just doing that. I ordered some vitamins and stuff and the other day, and now when I go on to the Before the First Cup page, that they're all my vitamins that I ordered are down at the bottom of the page in the ads.
Yeah, I noticed. Well, actually, that's like called targeted advertising, and I think it's pretty neat in the fact that at least they're trying to cater to the types of things that you do buy. I mean, I notice that too every time I go to a site and I have a cart. That's typically when it does that. Even if I don't buy it, if I had stuff in a cart, that gets tagged on my page as something that was one of my, likes or whatever. But I don't know. I almost find that the ads don't get as many clicks when they're targeted because, you just bought vitamins, so why do you need to buy more?
Exactly.
When I was looking at desks and stuff a while back, I kept getting office furniture ads everywhere. And it's like, okay, well, I already looked at office furniture, and you're sending me to the same site I was just at.
Yeah.
You would think that ads that maybe had similar, maybe within the same category, but totally different manufacturer or whatever, might get more attention.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, artificial intelligence is still growing.
That's right.
So you'll be afraid when the next time you go there and it's something you've been thinking about.
I know.
Getting ads from your thoughts.
Oh my God! I just read that freaking the Pentagon orders all these state-of-the-art spy glasses.
Oh, those Oculus Rift ones that I was telling you about.
I don't think they call them Oculus Rift. They're called X6 glasses.
Oh, those are just the spy ones that can see behind you.
Yeah.
Those aren't the ones that I was talking about where they're going to turn the entire armed services into hackers by just waving their arms and pretending to shoot guns.
Crazy, man.
They're going to put them on the offensive as in military ground troops on the ground in cyberspace.
Yeah.
To come after you and me.
Oh my God.
They're going to show up as like little burglar figures. But they're going to be able to launch grenades and stuff in cyberspace, and who knows what that's going to equate to on our ends,
Absolutely.
It could be that our computers going like they did, you and me, at the same time. Where someone pulled the plug. Like they threw, I used to say it was like a Skype bomb went off.
Yeah. That's horrendous.
It's a targeted attack. Anyway, were you reading?
Yeah, the Pelosi.
Okay, go ahead.
Get back to stinking Pelosi. I'll read that again. We ensure our laws are fully enforced, she said, so that due process is provided to unaccompanied children and the safety and well-being of unaccompanied children is protected. We must also work to address the root causes of the problem. Yeah, like her. More than 50,000 unaccompanied children from Central America have crossed the border, and it's probably way more than that, into the United States since last October. But the federal law says the U.S. cannot immediately turn the minors away if they are non-contagious. If they are from non-contagious countries such as Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala. What the hell does that supposed to mean? Most of them are sick. What does that mean, non-contagious countries? It doesn't make sense. The rush of children has turned into a crisis for Customs and Border Protection, which does not have the capacity to house the children for 72 hours before they are transferred. Here we go. Before they are transferred to the Department of Health and Human Services to await an immigration hearing. Pelosi will be joined by Democratic representatives Philemon Vila of Texas, Ruben H. Hinojosa of Texas, and Stephen Horsford of Nevada. Hinojosa is the chairman of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, and Vila sits on the House of Homeland Security Committee. Oh, isn't that so nice? And that's the end of that freaking article. So they're going to go there and just start going, welcome to our beautiful country that we're destroying.
Well, yeah, and come in with swine flu. That kind of bothered me when I saw that, because this could be the way that Barry gets this whole thing touched off. And now Ebola, I told you they found a case in Spain. Mm-hmm. That MERS virus, everything got real quiet about too.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I just got an awesome message. I'm trying to respond and talk at the same time. Update would be great. I think we might have a guest on for a few minutes.
Oh, cool.
Someone who I don't think we've ever had him on in the morning.
Wow.
So message me back and tell me if you want me to pull you in, but I just saw him come on Skype, so I think he's going to come on.
Oh, right on.
Mr. Brandon Turberville messaged me and asked me if I needed someone to come on with me for a few minutes. If I was on by myself, and I was like, no, I'm not on by myself, but I'm not feeling too good.
Aww.
And I think he's only got a few minutes before work or whatever, but yeah, come on for 10 minutes. I'll pull you on. He'll give us an update at least. He's been watching very closely what's been going on. I told him we've been blowing off the Middle East all week, so perfect timing.
It is, isn't it?
Yes.
And I've never spoken to him before. I've never met him.
Oh, Brandon's awesome. I haven't met him, but I've talked to Brandon many times.
That's cool.
Yay! All right, just tell me when. Well, that's great. What a nice surprise.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, we usually don't have guests ever, so that's pretty good. Oh, my God. So I see that they have this new museum in New York City. It's a bouncy castle full of boobs.
What?
I swear to God, but we're not going to go there. We'll wait until after the middle of this conversation. I did. I put it on the WTF page.
Jeez.
I was like, what on earth? I'll have to send my sister. All right, he's ready. Hold on. Let me pull him in. Should we? Oh, that was the other thing at dinner. My daughter says to me yesterday. She's like, "Mom, I've been listening to your show." I'm like, "You have?"
Oh no!
She's like, "I heard you. I heard you when you're going to try to click on something, and then you're singing la 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 la." I was like, "Oh no, she was listening." Oh, she's like, it was funny. Yeah, I'm glad you thought so.
I better try and curb my F-bombs.
It was funny. It's like, I go upstairs. I said to my husband, were you letting her listen to the show? He's like, no. I think she was outside here right next to the door on the deck. And that's why as soon as the show was over yesterday, she was at the door going, Mom, you done?
She was monitoring.
Sitting outside listening. Hey, Brandon's here.
Hey, Jules. How are you?
Good morning. Happy Friday.
Yeah, happy Friday indeed.
Hey, we have Wendy, or a.k.a. Lady Pitbull, is on with us as well. One of my co-hosts.
How are you?
I'm all right.
Awesome.
So, how was your interview last night? I saw you did the interview on GCN.
Yeah, it went really well. We did 2 hours. We finished up about 1 a.m. on my time. So,
nice.
I'll have the archive up on my website soon enough, probably in the next day or two. So.
Oh, good. Good.
Really well. We talked about ISIS and Iraq and Syria and Iran, and got into some other things as well. Potential for a terror attack here in the United States to be blamed on ISIS and probably domestic terrorists.
Right, now the radicalization of the children that they're talking about them doing now, too.
Well, yeah, the radicalization of the children, that's been, we've had Pakistani training camps and Saudi Arabian training camps for years, and the U.S. government should know about it because they fund it and direct it. So they would know well that these camps exist. And the idea is that you have all of these foreign fighters inside Syria who've been brought from all over the world to overthrow Assad. And the claim is that these guys are now coming back to Europe and to the United States, and they're ready and willing to plan and carry out a terrorist attack here at home. Now, if you or I make one mistake in the spelling on our passport, we don't get back to the United States or we don't get overseas. But these guys somehow manage to get through every airport as fast as possible with no delays. The question is, we've had all this propaganda recently. We've had it since 9/11, but recently we've had so much propaganda coming out regarding the possibility of a massive terror attack here domestically, and especially in the last 2 weeks. We've even had Dick Cheney came out and said we can expect a massive terrorist attack. We've had this police industrial complex company in the line of duty. They've posted up a Twitter on their Twitter feed where they said that they posted up a picture. Apparently, the police raided the ACLU or something like that. It was an article from The Guardian. I can't keep up with all the police raids against innocent people, but they posted it up and said, "Yeah, people are worried about the militarization of police now, but are they going to? They're not going to care so much when ISIS comes to calling." On their Twitter feed. So, besides the fact that one could ask, if you're so good at your job, why would ISIS come a-calling to begin with? But the fact is that there's been so many people throwing this out there as a possibility, and high-level people throwing this out there as a possibility, as well as the media picking up on it, that I can see the outlines for a potential domestic terror attack here in the United States to be blamed on ISIS and, of course, the radical domestic extremists that are apparently around the corner, gun owners and that sort of thing. We can see the outlines of this. I'm not sitting here and trying to predict something and say it's going to happen and it's going to happen now. I can't do that, and I'm not even going to say that it's going to happen. But we're seeing the propaganda being lined up for when it does, for the crackdown to come shortly after that. This is what we saw before 9/11. This is why people were able to call out the targets of 9/11 before it happened, because there was gradual propaganda. This is predictive programming. These things are being put in our minds for us to react. Whenever this happens, we'll immediately think ISIS, domestic terrorists, that sort of thing. So we've got to be really vigilant right now, because this is a real danger.
I absolutely agree. And one other thing I wanted to ask you about, have you also been seeing the same things that I have in regards to some sort of like bioterror attack, just with between the Ebola, the MERS? Now I saw yesterday that they've announced the first case of swine flu in one of the detention centers down in San Antonio with some of these kids coming over from Guatemala.
I've been seeing hints of it. Hints of bacteriological, potential bacteriological attacks, and well,
what about the anthrax? Remember from the CDC, 75, and then it ended up being 82 were exposed, and it was fully active anthrax that was sent to all these labs that weren't even supposed to have it. It was last week or the week before. And they're like, how could that happen?
I didn't see that, but remember the original anthrax attacks right after 9/11, that's been proven to have come from a government lab.
Well, right.
So where do all these people get all this anthrax, right? This stuff doesn't just pop up.
No, this was right out of the CDC lab, and it was some big breach, like, oh no, how did this happen? They sent it to, I'll have to find you one of the clips, because it made my mouth hang. I could not believe. And it has to be intentional. They cannot be that absolutely lax, especially with something such as anthrax, where 80-some employees got exposed. And they were sending it to all of these other labs that weren't even designated for that type of virulent bacteria. Or whatever anthrax is. What is it?
We haven't heard anything else about that, have we?
Nope. There was one day, there were 2 clips, and that was it.
No follow-up at all on that.
But you're absolutely right, Brandon. That's the first thing that I thought is the last time that we really saw anthrax was 9/11, and then you had that kooky woman who sent it to some of the to the White House and a few other places, if you remember that one. But
yeah, well, see, I've seen the mention of bacteriological weaponry being repeated in the media outlets. Right, they throw this out. It seems, from what I've read in the media pieces regarding the terrorists coming back to the United States, it's been of the nuclear variety or the bacteriological warfare. This is what they expect, right?
Yep.
There will be another terrorist attack. In fact, some of the European intelligence agencies have said there will be another terrorist attack. So this is very concerning, again, because, like I said, remember 9/11, there were rumblings in the media then of incoming terrorist attacks. And that was predictive programming. That was to get the average person to expect this to happen, and when it does happen, this is subconscious, of course, but when it does happen, they automatically go to the default, which is, at the time, it was Muslim extremism, Muslim fundamentalism, and today it's going to be probably a combination. Muslim extremism working with domestic terrorists.
yeah, I think so. And they're going to get people to start turning in their neighbors. And they really, really have been ramping that up in how to identify, a terrorist. And, this happens over a long period of time. Well, what types of viewpoints would a domestic terrorist have? Well, anti-government views,
That's right.
That was like some of the newest stuff they've been putting out there now.
Pro-Second Amendment.
Yep.
I can tell you how to spot a domestic terrorist. They generally work in Langley, Virginia.
Yes. Exactly.
Wow. So, what is your assessment then in regards to this whole Syria getting involved in the Iraq skirmish? Now, I didn't realize that Kerry stood up and supposedly told all the neighbors to Iraq, don't get involved. And now Syria started lobbing bombs over there. And I saw Israel, just the day before that, had been lobbing more bombs into Syria.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
Any thoughts on what that's about?
This morning I have not checked for the official word of the Syrian government, but I'm not convinced it ever happened.
Well, that's what
remember, the official reports from Iraq reported early on that this was an American drone strike. That's what the Iraqi media reported. Then it changed to it was a Syrian military airstrike, but Iraqi sources are still saying, or were still saying yesterday, that it was an American drone strike. So we don't really know. And wouldn't it be? I mean, you got to understand, Assad is a pretty smart guy. He's not only outsmarted the death squads and the entirety of the West and the Gulf Cooperation Council, but he's been very smart politically. He's not an idiot. He's not about to throw planes. He's not like American foreign policy experts, right? He's not just going to start bombing countries willy-nilly because he has a lot to lose by doing that. He's got problems with ISIS in his own country. So I'm not convinced that Syria actually did bomb into Iraq. And that wouldn't this be interesting if the United States used one of their drones that couldn't see ISIS early on, but can be used for surveillance. So if they use one of their drones to bomb inside Iraq and blame it on Syria, I wouldn't put it past them at all, because they've done this type of thing before. And again, this comes just 3 days after Israel had bombed military targets on trumped up charges for Syria. They claim there was a teenager in Israel who was killed by artillery or some type of missile, maybe small arms fire or something. The teenager was killed. He was delivering some material from, I don't know, point A to point B. I don't know the details, but he was not involved in any combat from what we can tell. But we don't know who killed him. It could have that the Israeli government has said that the Syrian government is responsible for whatever the Syrian soldiers do, and the death squad. So if the death squads come across the border and kill somebody, it's not the death squads to blame, it's Assad. So that's the rationality of Israel. But
so it's okay to go to Palestine and kick some 5-year-olds.
Yeah, that's acceptable. But keep in mind that there are fatwas from Saudi Arabia that allow terrorist attacks virtually anywhere in the world except one place that's not allowed in Israel, and you got to wonder why, right? Israel is involved in this as much as Saudi Arabia and the United States. So again, as I said, I'm not convinced that Syria did this. I think this is a way to sort of propagandize another violation of American airspace or Iraqi airspace, and another attempt to make Syria look like some type of invading force.
Right.
But I think ISIS in Iraq is essentially an attempt to justify the bombing into Syria, the creation of a buffer zone into Syria. And actually it serves a number of purposes, and one of them is the ability to fund ISIS and arm ISIS with Humvees and armored vehicles and even helicopters and tanks. You can do this sort of through the back door because you can't legally give them all of this heavy military equipment, but if you allow them to confiscate it from the Iraqis, the justification, there doesn't have to be any justification, right? They just captured it as part of a military operation. Now they're parading through the streets of Mosul with tanks and Humvees and so forth. And of course, the U.S. claims that it didn't see any of this. It has surveillance drones flying over Iraq every day, but they just didn't see ISIS taking over half of the country until they had done it.
Right.
A lot of wasted money on that, I guess. But we've got reports. When ISIS came to town, the Iraqi military threw down their arms, threw down their uniforms, and ran. But the Iraqi soldiers are saying, we were given orders to do that. We were given orders to drop our guns and retreat. There are reports that the Iraqi military commanders were actually paid by the U.S. to do this, to back down and let ISIS seize this territory.
Where have we seen this before?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's the same damn playbook they always roll out. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, so we've got ISIS now that's got territory from eastern Syria all the way across Iraq. And what this is going to do, if there is a military airstrike, a U.S. military airstrike, the argument is going to be you cannot attack ISIS in Iraq and then allow them to run across the border into Syria and hide. This is the same argument that we had in Vietnam with Cambodia, right? You can't fight the Viet Cong and the Vietnamese military if they're going to run over to the border of Cambodia and be protected by the border lines.
Exactly.
This is going to be the argument in Iraq, right? You can't put handcuffs on the troops. You're going to bomb Iraq, you have to bomb into Syria. And if you bomb into Syria, what you're going to create effectively is a buffer zone. And this is what NATO has wanted for the last 2 or 3 years. They've wanted a buffer zone in Syria because what that will create is a staging ground for the terrorists to launch even more deadly attacks deeper inside Syria. So this is a backdoor to Syria, but there's also the question of Maliki, the prime minister of Iraq. Maliki is a Shiite, of course, and he's warmed up to Iran. Maliki has opened negotiations with Iran. They've become closer in terms of just government relations. Iran is aiding Syria. Iraq is allowing Iran to fly aid flights to Syria over Iraqi airspace. The United States and NATO, they don't want this. They want that to stop. So if you remove Maliki, and keep in mind that Kerry and Obama have both demanded that Maliki leave, if you get Maliki out of there and you put this coalition government of Sunnis and Kurds and so forth, essentially you're going to end up cutting off the flight to Syria. You're going to cut off the aid that goes to Syria from Iran, and you're also going to put a stop to these warmer relations between Iraq and Iran. There's a number of reasons that they're doing this. There's also the possibility, because Iran has sent about 300 troops of its own, the Quds forces, to Baghdad to help maintain order. There's also the possibility that with the Marines and so forth that we've sent in, special forces that we've sent in, that there could be some type of false flag battle of some type, where Iranian troops get killed or American troops get killed. It's blamed on the Iranians or something, and then we can justify the cross-border bombing into Iran. All of this, of course, is just the stepping stone to Russia, and we're seeing that being developed right now.
This is like their absolute wet dream, what they're orchestrating over there right now. I mean, how long have they been trying to get their teeth into Iran, first of all, right? I mean, think about that. And this whole Russian proxy war that's been going on for the last couple of years. You know, one of the things that I wanted you to speak to, if you have just a few more minutes, is your article from a few days ago about the Saudi royalty purportedly financing ISIS. And that's an interesting connection.
Yeah, you get several levels, and you got to, before you talk about the Saudis, you got to look at this Baghdadi guy. Right? The media will tell you that the leader of ISIS is Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. Right? He's an Iraqi who joined Al Qaeda to fight against Saddam Hussein. That might be a surprise to many people that Al Qaeda was against Saddam Hussein, but in reality that is the case. Right? Saddam was largely secular, and this was the case. Al Qaeda was being used to destabilize him. So Baghdadi joined Al Qaeda to fight Saddam Hussein, and during the U.S. invasion, he engaged in these war crimes against Shiites and Christians. He took over a Baghdad cathedral. He helped usher in this death squad reign of terror in Iraq. He established Islamic courts that had public executions of Iraqis and so forth. But after the departure of Paul Bremer, Baghdadi was arrested. He was caught. He was put into Camp Bucca for 4 years, 2005 to 2009. So he spent 4 years in a U.S. torture camp. Now, I don't know if a lot of people understand what this means, but there's only one or two ways you can get out of a U.S. torture camp. Well, three ways, really. One is being dead, and the other is you become a double agent. You get told that the only way you'll ever get out of this is if you work with the U.S. and NATO. The other way is that there's actually mind control programming techniques that go on in these things, right? You can take a sheep herder from Afghanistan, you can bring him to one of these torture camps, and through a long period of torture and brainwashing, you can use this MK Ultra style brainwashing technique to actually create a terrorist. And we've seen this with a number of people. For instance, Belhaj in Libya. He came from Guantanamo Bay, and he was turned, and he was trained from Guantanamo Bay and sent to Libya to overthrow Gaddafi. We had Kumu in Libya. He was the same situation there. He was in these U.S. torture camps, and then either turned or created to go in and help overthrow Gaddafi as well. So we've got Baghdadi, who was in Camp Bucca for 4 years, and he comes out. And when he comes out of the prison camp, he joins the Islamic Emirate of Iraq. That's IEI, Now, in 2010, he was named the emir of the IEI, the Islamic Emirate of Iraq, right? So he started engaging in these terrorist operations against al-Maliki, who was the prime minister then as well. And the reason was because he was claiming that Maliki was the servant of Iran. Well, of course, he's not the servant of Iran, but these guys do not want relations between Iraq and Iran. Of course, it's funny how al-Qaeda's policy always mirrors the policy of the U.S. State Department and NATO. So in 2013, Baghdadi vows allegiance to al-Qaeda, and he takes off with his group and goes to Syria, and he calls it the Emirate of Iraq and the Levant, and changes the name again to what we have is I'm sorry, I can't remember the name, the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant. So it changes all these names, you know.
Right,
So,
and have you seen the press release from the State Department that came out making sure that we all knew who ISIL was and all of their aliases?
yeah, notice the one that they've gone with is ISIS, right? So it's
Right.
the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, the Islamic State of Iraq and Sham, the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant. They're all the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
The Sham and Levant is just the same word for that region. But they've gone with ISIS, and there's no mistake that they've gone with ISIS either. But we have this Baghdadi character who's supposedly the leader. But recently, I think it was in January of this year, the Syrian government captured a death squad fighter. And this was a report that came out in Al Arabiya, right? This is a Saudi-owned and operated news agency. It's Saudi media, so they wouldn't really have anything to gain by reporting this. But essentially, the Syrian government captured a death squad fighter, and they were interrogating him, and they asked him two questions among many. And one of them was why he was following the movement of the Free Syrian Army, and the other was who had given him the orders to do that. Now, he said he didn't know. The fighter said, I don't know why I was ordered to follow the movement of the Free Syrian Army. It's beyond me. But he did know who had given him the orders, and it wasn't Baghdadi. It was someone he referred to as Abu Faisal, right? And then he explained that Abu Faisal was actually Prince Abdul Rahman Al Faisal. That is the Saudi royal family. That's the Saudi prince. He's the brother of the Saudi foreign minister, right? He's the Prince Saud Al Faisal, Prince Turki Al Faisal. These are his brothers. This is the Saudi royal family. The Saudi royal family is giving orders to ISIS. This is not a surprise, right? Remember, we saw about 2-3 weeks ago, the alternative media, the mainstream media wouldn't touch it at all, but the alternative media had a flurry of stories coming up saying, breaking news, ISIS terrorists were trained in Jordan by the CIA. What wasn't breaking news, actually. We knew this a long time ago, and some of us were talking about this a long time ago. In 2013, I think in March 2013, there were articles in Der Spiegel, and there were articles, I think, in the London Guardian, regarding the reports that around 10,000 fighters were being trained in Jordan. And remember, this is about the number of the ISIS fighters in Iraq right now. About 10,000 fighters are being trained in Jordan by the CIA, by the French intelligence, I think that's DGSE, and by British intelligence.
Can I ask something? I actually heard someone mentioning the Jordan trainings yesterday again, and I was pretty certain that it had been in Turkey that all that was happening at the time. Because I remember when that all came out, I read the article, and the CIA had admitted that they were training them.
Yeah, they've done that in Turkey as well. It looks like much of the ISIS training has been done in Jordan. Now,
okay, that's good.
There is training that's done in Turkey, but Turkey acts more as a facilitator because ISIS, a lot of the fighters were transported to Turkey, and remember that we had this situation where ISIS invaded the northeast of Syria into the Latakia province from Turkey. They came in from Turkey. They attacked Latakia. They killed a bunch of people, men, women, children, and took the bodies with them and used the bodies as stage props in Ghouta, Ghouta chemical weapons attacks.
Mm-hmm.
After that, they were transferred from the west of Turkey to the east of Turkey, and they were brought back into where they all are now, where they maintain control of a small province of territory in Syria, and from that they can go across the border from Syria into Iraq. So, Turkey is definitely involved, but specifically this training method, it was not really news at all. It's pretty old news that we're training these groups. And I don't understand. Well, I do understand it, but why so many people are confused as to who is really training these people. It's not a secret. We had Brzezinski back in the late 70s. You can watch him on video telling the Mujahideen or Al Qaeda that their war was a holy war. He's giving them a pep talk. He admits it in interviews. We were training and funding terrorism to attack Gaddafi in the 90s. We were training them in 2001, and we never stopped. Al Qaeda is the CIA's Arab Legion,
and we also have Hillary Clinton on film multiple times saying that we actually trained the Mujahideen as well to go into Afghanistan.
Yeah, in fact, you can. I mean, again, there's an interview with Brzezinski, and you can. I would just go to Google and type in Zbigniew Brzezinski. Some stirred up Muslims, and that's a speech. That's an interview that he did, where he was asked about funding Al Qaeda, and he was like, "Well, what's so dangerous about it? Some stirred up Muslims in the Middle East, or American geopolitical policy." And see, Brzezinski understands that these guys really aren't a threat because they're controlled. He knows that because he helped, fund them and he helped create them. But this is not the terrorist threat that we talked about earlier, the potential terrorist attack here in the United States and Britain. This is not something that's going to be orchestrated by some ape-like creature in a cave somewhere in Afghanistan or Syria or Iraq. This will be initiated by Western intelligence. These guys are puppets. Half of these guys cannot even read. They don't even know. There was a reporter who got captured in Syria, and she was asking the death squad fighters, why are you taking money from the Saudis and the Israelis? And they didn't even know that they were taking money from the Saudis and the Israelis. They looked at her and said, "What are you talking about? We don't do that. We don't take money from the Israelis." Well, they do, and they do take money from the Israelis and the Saudis. They thought that there was just some magical organization that somehow funded itself, because most of them are completely intellectually deficient. They've been trained, some of them since they were kids, some of them have been radicalized with the help of intelligence agencies and so forth, but they're not that bright. So if something does happen, we need to be fully aware of who is behind it, and it's not some bearded troll in a cave.
Absolutely. One last thing, you were talking in regards to the Saudi family. I remember reading a story when the Russian Olympics was going on, and there were all the fears of the Chechen terrorists, right, after the two brothers from the Boston bombing. The Chechen terrorists attacking the Olympics in Sochi, and there were a few stories that came out that had stated that Prince Bandahar, I believe, was actually in control of the Chechen terrorists. Was that true? Because that would be very interesting now if we've been able to trace this back again to the Saudi family.
Yeah, he did. He went over and talked to Putin, and he made an offer. He wanted Putin to drop Syria and let NATO take Syria, and in return, the Saudis would buy military hardware and weaponry from the Russians. That would be what Russia would gain. And of course, Russia didn't want to do that, and his response was that if you don't, then these terrorist groups that we control will be unleashed during the Winter Olympic Games. And that's reported in mainstream outlets. Not really covered that much, but it was reported in mainstream outlets. And of course, that was Prince Bandar Bush.
Bandar,
but Sultan, right? This is the guy they call Bandar Bush because he's so close to the Bush family.
That's just insane.
Yeah, a little too close.
Yeah.
So, getting back to Brzezinski, you had mentioned to me the other day that you're going to do a series. Are you doing a series of articles on now using some of the stuff that Brzezinski had talked about in his grand chessboard and kind of link it back to all these things that are happening right now?
Yeah, I've really concluded the series now. I've got an article up called "The Big New Brzezinski: The Decline of the U.S. and the End of the American Empire."
I'll drop that in the chat.
Yeah, and it's essentially, I've gone through the grand chessboard, which is available online, and at the time that I got it wasn't that expensive, but it probably is now. But the idea is that he goes through this book and he lays out the geopolitical strategy under the guise, of course, if you were an uninformed reader, you would see this as sort of a U.S. imperialist. But especially once you get to the end of the book, you can clearly realize that he's only promoting U.S. imperialism for a short window, right before the U.S. completely collapses and falls in on itself, which is inevitable. In fact, he's got a section in the book called "Beyond the Last Global Superpower," and done several articles on that, because he doesn't just talk about Russia. He talks about Russia, but also about China and Japan and some of the more, I guess, not mediocre, but the more middle of the road players, not superpowers, but pivots, geostrategic pivots and so forth, minor geostrategic players. But you can go through my articles, and what I've done is I've taken a lot of his quotes and tried to put them out there for people who might not have access to the book or have time to go through that book, because it's a very dense book. But you can see what he's writing about. And what's so funny is that the book not only talks about the decline of American empire, but he also talks about the culture, that not just an overextended military is going to bring the U.S. down, or this tragic economic policy, both of which he supports, but also the cultural issues in the United States. He says we've created a culture of hedonism.
We have.
Yeah, and it's actually, he's only concerned about it in the sense that the culture is so addicted to entertainment and pleasure and relaxation and just hedonistic things, that it's hard to actually get Americans to go fight foreign wars because they're so addicted to comfort. So it's actually harder to get them to get behind a war, and that's his only concern. By the way, he's quite comfortable with it otherwise. But that quote's in the article, and he discusses. Remember, in this book, I'll pull this up here, and I'll read just a brief quote. He says, "As America becomes an increasingly multicultural society, it may find it more difficult to fashion a consensus on foreign policy issues, except in the circumstances of a truly massive and widely perceived direct external threat." The book was written in 1997, and we got that widely perceived direct external threat in 2001. And this book is as relevant today as it was in 1997, because he lays out the sort of the geopolitical end goal of what the U.S. specifically will be working for. But he also lets you know at the end of the book that the U.S. is going to expend itself in achieving these aims, which is essentially world hegemony, not in the power of a single state like the United States or Britain or France, but world hegemony in sort of an international setting. In other words, a global government, a global apparatus that does for the world what national governments used to do for countries.
Can I ask a question? Why can't we use this evidence, direct evidence against him in a court of law and convict this guy?
Well, that would presume that the courts would do such a thing, but
right.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would be kind of hard to convict somebody over this, because he doesn't actually say that 9/11 is going to happen. For instance, it's very, very open. But I don't think there's enough evidence to do that, and I don't think even if there was, that there'd be much of a hope in the courts.
Plus, it wasn't Brzezinski an advisor. I mean, so he would kind of had some insider info to sort of connect dots to see what was coming.
Yeah. Now, as far as the Al Qaeda situation, there's plenty of evidence there. But
Yeah.
you know,
This sounds to me like a damn blueprint.
yeah, it is a blueprint. The grand chessboard is, but
Yeah.
I think people really should just go pick it up and wade through it, and they'll be surprised once they get through to the end of the book how much they really understand about the direction we're heading in for the world. And it is a confrontation with Russia and China, direct confrontation possibly. So it's not something to fool around with. The Russians can fight back. You know, this is not picking on Iraq or picking on some Afghanistan or something. The Russians can fight back with nuclear weapons.
Now, this direct confrontation, though, in reading some of Griffin's material, this was actually by design, right? Who wins in the end here? They all do, don't they? I mean, this is all just orchestrated to kind of pull the wool over our eyes. And, you know, these front-end battles that we're having with the other superpowers really aren't even battles. They're all chummy on the backside.
Yeah, I think that's 100% correct, because a lot of this stuff that's written, there's a lot of question about why would somebody like Brzezinski put some of this stuff in a book, or why would Bertrand Russell put this in a book when they know that people like us are going to read it. Well, the thing is, it doesn't really matter if people like us read it. The book's not written for us. It's written for middle management, being the people in the intelligence agencies, government, big corporations, that sort of stuff. They're middle management for the world oligarchy. And you can't have this big plot and then you bring in a quarter of the population and say, now don't tell everybody else, because it doesn't work that way. They've got to be convinced of what they're working for is some type of, maybe world hegemony from the American perspective, U.S. world hegemony from the Russian perspective, Russian world hegemony, European world hegemony, that sort of thing. So you got this set up for the middle management of the world oligarchy. They can read this stuff and be convinced that this is actually what they're working for. But Griffin is 100% right in that all of this is really just a big script, and that we don't even really register as actors. We're just the audience. We're observers.
And where's Ukraine? You notice how that just kind of disappeared? I haven't seen much of anything on it lately. After people were having water cut off and they were dropping phosphorus on some cities. Did you see that last week or the week before? And really, I have not even seen one news clip this whole week on Ukraine.
Well, recently, Putin has asked the Russian Duma to revoke the use, the authority to use military force in Ukraine, and the Ukrainian military is essentially bogged down. They haven't been able to make gains in Ukraine at all recently. In fact, the Ukrainian, this gets confusing, the separatists, I guess we'll say, managed to gain control of a bunch of tanks. And now it's important not to look at Putin as the second coming of Christ. This is
exactly
not, just either or. We don't like the Obama policy, so we got to go worship Putin. Putin is involved in eastern Ukraine. There's no doubt that he is involved in helping fund and train the separatists in Ukraine against the fascist government in the West, Kiev. And it seems very funny that these guys were able to just seize a bunch of parked tanks that were just sitting in a lot, unguarded.
Again, notice how that happens.
Yeah, so it's it's a chessboard, and Putin's playing the same way that the United States is. He's just at this point better at it. And now the separatists have tanks, they have arms, they have unmarked uniforms. That doesn't mean that they're Russian troops. I haven't seen any evidence that there's actual Russian troops in Ukraine, but I've seen clear evidence that shows that Russia is supporting them materially and probably in terms of training and so forth as well. So it looks like the separatists are only gaining steam while the Kiev group is losing support, despite the chicken feed that the U.S. has given them in terms of money. Notice that when they took over, when Poroshenko took over, when they kicked out Yushchenko, when they kicked out Yushchenko, they whoever took over was going to inherit austerity policies that's going to make you hated. I mean, when you impose austerity on a country, regardless of what it is, but especially a place like Ukraine where it gets really cold, and you end up getting the gas cut off, and you end up getting subsidies removed from the gas pipelines and so forth, gas coming to heat the homes, you're going to be hated. This is a failed state. Western Ukraine is a failed state, and they have nobody to thank but the United States and NATO, because we were behind that coup to begin with.
Right.
And that's what they can. That's what the benefits of working with NATO eventually are. It's IMF and coups.
And they ended up taking a whole ton of money from us and the EU, I believe.
Well, there was $5 billion that Victoria Nuland admitted that we had given groups in Ukraine to promote democracy, and you can read that as U.S. aid or National Endowment for Democracy or their subsidiaries, that go in, and by promoting democracy they mean overthrowing governments and imposing austerity and that sort of thing. But there's been more than that. I mean, that's just the money that's out in the open. That's not really the black budget money by any stretch of the imagination. They've gotten a lot more than that.
And final thoughts. I do have to go. I keep asking you more questions.
Yeah, I've got to run in the next few minutes. But
all right. Final thoughts then on the countries who we've kind of invaded and taken control of, and now they are on to us, namely like Afghanistan and Pakistan, as they disavow, the Paki Al-Qaeda disavows anything to do with those Al-Qaeda over there in Iraq. What are we puppeteering them, or are they actually the groups that we should be listening to over there as to what's really going on as we drone bomb the crap out of them?
Well, the Al-Qaeda groups that disavow other Al-Qaeda groups, I would ignore that. That's just theater. You get a level of these in this jihadi culture, I guess you would say. These are not rational people, obviously, and essentially what happens. This is why they're used, by the way. Whenever they overthrow a government and they take power, it's not a concern because they're fanatics, right? One guy wears a red bandana on a Monday when he should have wore it on a Tuesday, and all of a sudden he has to be beheaded, and his whole family has to be killed, and it's open warfare, right? So they can't govern. They can't unite a country. They can't maintain a solid hold on power because they're too busy killing each other. So that's why no one is really concerned when they take power over a secular government, because that makes them weak. And again, this is the Brzezinski doctrine. This is the position of micro-states and mini-states. You break up a national state into all these little quabbling bits and pieces of countries, and they can't ever resist a seriously national government like the United States, Russia, Europe, or something like that. But they also can't resist the corporations. So whenever the Al-Qaeda groups say, no, we don't want to have anything to do with this group, for instance, the Al-Nusra Front fighting fighting ISIS, who's fighting the Free Syrian Army, who's fighting both of them. It's just, they're all controlled by NATO, by the Saudis, and of course Pakistani intelligence is involved. They have been since the very beginning. It's just that you have a group of fanatics who are so rabid and so psychopathic and dumb that they can't resist killing one another. And that's the beautiful thing about them from the standpoint of the oligarchy, right? Because you can use them as your army, your proxy army, but it doesn't really matter what happens because they won't be able to maintain a hold on power. You can overthrow them anytime you want. You can go into certain areas that certain groups control and take over. It's anarchy. Take over that group or that certain area, and the other groups won't come to aid them. So it's not that big of a deal in that sense. So I would ignore any concerns over or any questions over Al-Qaeda groups not supporting other Al-Qaeda groups. That's just the way it plays out, and that's really just theater for people back home.
So they're all bad. They're all dumb. They're all falling into this. Wow. That's pretty. I was hoping that at least there was some common sense over there somewhere.
There's one thing I want to point out before I go here, and that's when we were talking about using ISIS, that NATO, for instance, wants to use ISIS in Iraq for a cross-border bombing of Syria and then possibly even Iran, and that this is a stepping stone to Russia. If you go look at the articles by Anne Marie Slaughter, she's the former director or assistant director of policy planning under the Obama administration. She's not there now, but that was her post. And she's aptly named, of course, Anne Marie Slaughter. And she's arguing for two things. She says you can't go into Iraq and bomb Iraq without bombing Syria because it's this whole Vietnam-Cambodia thing, right? You can't let them go across the border and get safe haven. But she comes back in an op-ed that was published in Project Syndicate, I believe, and she's pretty open about what she really wants. And she says Putin is too strong in Ukraine, and you can't do anything in Ukraine. He's just way too strong there, but he's not as strong in Syria. That's why you have to bomb Syria. You hit Putin in Syria. So the ultimate target here is Russia. Whether you want to go into Ukraine or Syria, the ultimate target is Russia. And she argues that this is going to send shockwaves not just through Russia, but it's going to send shockwaves to China and also in Japan. It's going to help rein Japan in. So this, again, is the Brzezinski doctrine, right? This is going after Russia in Syria, in Ukraine, at the geopolitical pivots.
And Iran has aligned itself in some respects with Russia as well, with trade and oil and things of that nature.
Yeah, they're very close. Russia and Iran are very close. In fact, Iran and China are now.
Yes, they are.
So, people can go read Anne Marie Slaughter. I don't have the actual article title here with me, but it was published in Project Syndicate. It was an opinion editorial where she talks about this, and she says that we should hit Putin in Syria because that's where he's weak. Well, if Putin is your main target, again, that's the Brzezinski doctrine. It's extremely dangerous too.
Yeah, I found her on CFR page, but I'll see if I can find that article. So, all right, tonight you have a new episode airing, which should have aired Monday night, and that was my fault. I somehow managed to air the episode from last week, and you are dealing with exclusively the Iraq situation, I believe, tonight, correct?
Yeah, in fact, tonight's episode, and I've already recorded next week's episode, so if you listen tonight and Monday night, you'll get the breakdown of the Iraq ISIS situation. I'll go into it more detail on Monday night, but you'll get the point from the episode that will play tonight. So if you're interested in that, listen to the show tonight and Monday night, and I guess next Friday night, because that'll be the rebroadcast. And I think you'll get a pretty good idea of what's going on there.
Awesome, Brandon. Well, thank you so much for coming on. That was quite a treat for a Friday.
You are one hell of an amazing young man. Let me say so.
Yeah, hey, Brandon, I got to tell you, I've mentioned this to you before, but you are like the one brain that makes sense out of all of this for me, what's going on in the Middle East. I thank you for that.
Well, I don't hear that too often, but thank you.
Thank you, dude. That was terribly enlightening. It was wonderful.
Yeah, that was really great. Well, you have an awesome weekend.
Okay, you too. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, no problem. And make sure you get out in some sunshine.
That's what I'm going to do right now.
All right, awesome.
Right on, brother.
All right, I'll catch you later, Brandon.
Okay.
All right, take care. Okay, well, that was great. Thank you so much. What an awesome interview.
That was great. My head's spinning right now.
I know, me too. I'm like, where do we go from here? But anybody who hasn't caught Brandon's show, we run it Mondays and Fridays. We do a rebroad of What is Mondays. And I got to tell you, I can listen to it both nights and get more out of it a second time when I hear it because it's always just so information-packed. But Brandon runs at 9 p.m. Eastern on Monday and Friday. Like I said, it was my fault. Monday, somehow I managed to I cut the whole episode a second time, and put it in as a new episode Monday and totally did not realize that it was the same episode from last week. So the brand new one that was supposed to run Monday is running tonight. And he does a big breakdown of what's going on with ISIS in Iraq. And then I do have the episode for Monday, which I'm going to be cutting when I get off today, to air. And that is the second half of this where he continues and starts looking at all of the details. But, yeah, what about this whole Saudi thing? So that's pretty damn interesting, huh?
It is, man. And they've just got their nose in all kinds of crap. And I remember Walter, well, I think that was like, he was reading something else. However, they've got their mitts all up in the Ukraine right now. It's ridiculous. They're just everywhere. The Saudis are everywhere. It's horrible.
Well, I mean, they are kind of our puppets to help orchestrate all of this over there.
Absolutely. It's just, yeah.
And did you hear what he said, too? The Saudis and the Israelis are financing it all.
Yes, absolutely. It's just, we're just being played all around the world. Every part of humanity is being played right now.
Yeah,
Every facet. They've got us by the short hairs. So how are we going to deal with all this? This is insane. How we've been manipulated.
Big time.
On such grand scale around the world. Everyone.
The grand chessboard.
It is. That's what it is, man. This son of a bitch admits it. I mean, damn it. He's guilty. You know what I mean? What the hell else are you going to say about it? I don't know. And it's just going to escalate into we know what.
Yeah, exactly. World War III, which of course then they all make bank on in the back end.
Bank, huge bank, and they've got their underground bunkers, and they're ready to go into
ready to rock and roll. Yep.
Yeah, they pushed the go button quite a long time ago on all this.
Oh, they're spinning it though, big time. Hey, just for anyone in chat, I saw Dan asking when he's on the schedule. So his show's Truth on the Tracks. That was Brandon Turbeville. He writes for Activist Post. He also publishes on Nick Barnaby's theintermedia.org. Brandon has his own blog, www.brandonturbeville.com. And he airs here Monday and Friday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern. So I would highly recommend.
Someone just rang my doorbell. I'll be right back.
Okay. I would definitely highly recommend, if you have any interest in what is going on in the Middle East and all this backdoor garbage and who's financing, Brandon, out of anybody that I've ever listened to, Brandon really, for the last almost 3.5 years or so, he really is the one guy that I have found knows exactly what's going on. He's so good at it. And, I mean, he's written 7 books now, I believe, on top of it all. And this is what he dedicates himself to. So he definitely has it going on. I would highly recommend if you have any interest in checking his stuff out. So, all right, where do we go from here? I don't know if I have the mental capacity to really delve too deep into the Middle Eastern stuff. Plus, Brandon, I can't give you anything more than Brandon gave us already. He definitely has more of a handle on it than I do. But let's take a look at some of this other garbage. I started scrolling down through the latest video posts from early hours of this morning, and there was some nutty stuff that is for sure. The Ebola outbreak that we've talked about many times that they said was under control, and we didn't want to create any undue panic. And so since it's not giving us issue anymore, we are just going to declare that there is no problem, and we won't give you the numbers of the infected because look the other way, it doesn't matter anymore. Let me get to my page because I want to find the story the Prepper Chick found yesterday out of the Spanish newspaper saying now that they have a confirmed case of Ebola in Spain. Now that's Europe. And we also never heard too much more beyond those 20 or 40 people that had supposedly gotten through containment on a plane in an international airport in Africa and had found their way to Italy back a month or so ago. The tests that they were using for Ebola was a test for a strain that apparently these people didn't have. They had some new and improved strain, and so people got out, and they did not find out that they were contagious until after the fact. Now, for me to actually find that story, it might be a lot more difficult than just scrolling. But it couldn't have been that long ago. Like, how much news is there, guys? Oh, my God.
I'm back.
God. Was it anybody? Was it like the Prize Patrol with the $1 billion check?
Dude, I don't even know. My mind's just so blown right now. It was some weird college libtard that came to my door, and she's like going, like, I don't even know what her pitch was. She was like wanting to talk to people like with kids, especially teenagers, and some kind of family and something organization. And I'm like, well, look, I don't have any kids. And she's like, well, I'd like to know if you can direct me past any of the empty nesters in your neighborhood. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What did you just call me? I literally said that. I'm like, what? I've never heard of that. What's an empty nester? And she's like, oh, it's people that don't have children. And she's like, well, I've heard that all my life. And I'm like, I've never heard that until you just said it. And
empty nesters are typically people who had kids who grew up and are now gone, by the way.
Oh.
That's why it means empty nest. So she was absolutely wrong.
That's bizarre. I've never heard that before, ever, really. And it was weird. I'm like, I'm not going to guide you to pass anybody's house. Just go away. She's like asking me about my next door neighbors. I'm like, look, they're just about to move out. Yeah. You know what I mean? So
I always look like out the window from upstairs down at the front door, and I shake my head no. Which means go away politely.
Right. She was a weird libtard, man. It was weird.
Here, I wanted to read this story that Prepper Chick posted yesterday about this confirmed Ebola case in Spain. Deadly Ebola hemorrhagic fever case at La Fe Hospital sparks quote-unquote emergency protocol. Medics at Valencia's La Fe Hospital have had to step up precautions to prevent an outbreak of the potentially deadly Ebola virus. A man who had just come off a plane from an unnamed African country, unnamed, was admitted to the hospital on Monday night, showing symptoms of Ebola hemorrhagic fever, a contagious as well as infectious disease which causes internal and external bleeding. Death rates are extremely high, and as many as 9 in 10 people who catch it fail to survive. We talked about that. There's a 90% death rate with this Ebola strain. All staff who have had contact with the patient have had to wear disposable gowns covering as much of their bodies as possible, as well as masks, which have since been burnt. You know, something else that I was reading is that this newer strain that they supposedly didn't catch with the old tests, they are afraid is possible to be transmissible via airborne transmission, versus the old strain was only physical contact. Airborne would be very frightening.
So in other words, it's morphed.
Well, they think something happened, which, you know, well, I see biolabs.
Yeah, or something was released.
Well, you know, too, it was interesting because Brandon and I went back and forth the other day, and the interesting thing is, like, he's a good yardstick for me to tell whether or not I'm way off base with the way I see something. You know, I'll drop him a note and say, hey, what do you think of this? And I'll get his opinion on it. And if our opinions jive, then I think to myself, all right, I'm on base. But if our opinions are quite different, then I pick his brain for a little bit to figure out why he believes what he does. And usually,
wow, that's awesome.
Well, that helps me get a good compass, you know?
Sure, absolutely.
But the other day he messaged me and he says, you know, I really have a bad feeling that that it's coming, that the false flag is coming, and it's probably going to be some sort of nuke and maybe even some bio stuff. And I was like, oh no, that's what I was saying.
Yeah, dude. It's
and that's what they taught us. I mean, that's what they taught us in that FEMA class. Those were the two things, and that's why this is scaring me.
They're going to do it at once.
This is why this is scaring me. And then, of course, Cheney pops out of the woodwork, which is the one that was one of the people in charge when this was being orchestrated. So, yeah, this is really kind of scaring me a little bit.
here he comes. I mean,
Yep.
and when these guys start clucking again, that you know they're just trying to tell everybody to take cover.
Yep.
Go to your bunkers. That's their code.
Yeah. And honestly, Brandon is like that one litmus test for sanity for me. And so if he says he's seeing something, I do get nervous.
Yeah.
I do get nervous because
Everybody
he's not, you know, along the lines of going off onto fantasy. He's Mr. Fact-based, so.
Right. They're getting ready to pull the trigger here, and there's no little doubt about that.
Yeah. Here, let me read a little bit more about this Ebola. The man who had just come off a plane from an unnamed African country was admitted to the hospital on Monday night showing symptoms of Ebola hemorrhagic fever, a contagious as well as infectious disease which causes internal and external bleeding. Death rates are extremely high, as many as 9 in 10. All staff, I read that already. Although the diagnosis has not yet been confirmed, so not yet confirmed, the man's symptoms make it appear very likely he is suffering from the disease. Tests have been carried out urgently, and the patient is said to be in a stable condition in an isolated ward with high security and stringent cleaning and disinfecting procedures put into place. Symptoms of the condition include fever, muscular weakness, extreme tiredness, headache, and sore throat, which, hey, couldn't that account for so many other different things, such like I have the flu, I have a bad cold, you know.
Yes.
But it is usually followed quickly by diarrhea, vomiting, skin eruptions, as well as kidney and liver failure. So put on your thinking caps and pay attention, at least. I am really afraid. I mean, this is now the second report that I've seen. And notice after the whole Italy report, that was when the CDC and everyone else came out and said, no, nothing to see. We're not even going to track the number of cases anymore because it's so not out of control. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And it was like they really, really wanted to put a lid on it if it had escaped. And once it hits an international airport, we could have some big problems. You know, we saw some numbers with permutation showing how fast it could start spreading around the world. And I mean, once you get someone in the motherlands that has it, and if it is true what I read, where this newer version could now be transmissible via being airborne, that would be very serious. And like I've postulated many times before, you know, with this whole gun grab situation, FEMA camps, whatever the hell you know, think that the next horror is going to be, look at how easy it would be for them to disarm us and for us to stop fighting if something like this were to sweep through. And look at how easy it would be for them to reduce the population at a 90% death rate.
That's right. So I keep thinking about the V for Vendetta movie, where in that movie the pandemics were in Europe, went to Spain, and then the mass unrest is here in America.
And the unrest could be quelled very easily if your family members were bleeding out of all of their orifices and you were too sick to fight. And wouldn't you be on your knees begging the government for a cure for something that has no cure?
That's right.
So that's why, I mean, those people are just so freaking evil. They are just so evil. And when I look at stuff like this and you see the news and the little blips, and I mean, like Brandon said too, the propaganda drums are beating loud right now. That's why watching those mainstream clips are important, because that is the propaganda that they're stuffing down everybody's throat right now.
That's right.
All right, I'm going to read a little bit more of this, because we need to understand this. I mean, really, this is a big fear of mine, and I'm not trying to like sound any alarms that are undue. This is some pretty serious stuff, and the fact that they shut this all up and said there was nothing to see here, and now again it's like, oh, it's all out of control. We've never seen anything like this. It's like, you know, it's starting to seep through the cracks again, that there are some real new messages getting out about how bad this is.
And don't you remember saying that? Like when they
did.
decided to shut up?
Yeah, I did.
Like,
I was like, this isn't gone.
Yeah, it'll be worse than ever before when it arises again. Absolutely, we said
exactly, and it's percolating. It wasn't quite ready for prime time at that point, and so they had to shut it back down. But here, this article actually talks about it being airborne. Internal and external bleeding are usually seen early on, and tests will show a very low blood count in patients with a positive diagnosis. There is no vaccination nor any treatment. It is infectious, passed on through human contact, as well as contagious airborne. Health staff are at very high risk unless they follow extremely stringent emergency procedures to protect themselves. You know, I talked about Stephen King's book, The Stand. If you've never read that book came out in, I think it was either the late 70s or the early 80s. Guys, that book has never left me. I read that when I was a teenager. That was one of the scariest books. It was all about something getting out of the CDC, and during the lockdown procedures, one scientist got out and ran and went for his family and took off cross country. And by the time they hit Texas, that's where they ended up, was in Texas. And his whole family in the car was dead. He was like on his last breaths as he crashed into a gas pump at a gas station in the middle of the Texas desert somewhere. And all the old time good old boys that were sitting around at the gas station who opened the door of the car, they were the first contacts with the mothership. You know, and it went from there, and it spread everywhere, and it had a very high death rate like Ebola at 80 or 90%. And there were a small population that somehow seemed to be naturally immune to it. But if you've never read it, I have been waiting for 30 plus years for something like this to happen. And so that's why when I saw this really scary. And then that anthrax thing down at the CDC, I got to find those clips after the show and send those to Brandon. He said he didn't see that one. So
oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that was pretty freaky how that happened.
Oh man!
Like, whoops! How did we this highly dangerous stuff that wasn't even slated for these low security labs who didn't have any capability to handle this stuff, and it was released still active. It was supposed to be deactivated, by the way, too, to be transported. And I think the final number, it started at 75. I think it ended up being 82 CDC were all exposed to this.
Wow, I didn't hear about the increase in number.
Yeah, that was a few days ago. There was a Pigmine clip with the revised numbers of exposed.
Oh my god!
Yep,
That's nuts. And all they got to do is one of those people gets out to go to their families.
Well, yeah, and I don't know how. I don't think anthrax is contagious. Anthrax actually is a naturally occurring bacteria. I believe it's a bacteria that actually you could get in the soil. Did you know that? If you garden without gloves, it could get up under your nails.
Wow.
Here, wait, let's search that, because I remember the first time that I learned that, I was like, what? But it's some sort of bioterror attack thing. Nope, it occurs naturally.
Huh, that's pretty amazing.
I think it's spores. Hold on. Anthrax in soil.
So don't garden without gloves, people.
Yes, it can naturally be found in soil. Here we go. Anthrax is a serious infectious disease caused by a gram-positive rod-shaped bacteria, so it is a bacteria, known as Bacillus anthracis. Anthrax can be found naturally in soil and commonly affects domestic and wild animals around the world. Although it is rare, people can get sick with anthrax if they come into contact with infected animals or contaminated animal products or stuff that got released from a biolab. Contact, like Brandon said, during 9/11 with those anthrax attacks, they were all traced back to a government source, by the way.
Uh-huh.
Contact with anthrax can cause severe illness in both humans and animals. Anthrax is not contagious, which means you cannot catch it like a cold or flu. Now, this was one of the things that FEMA class trained us for, was someone being exposed to anthrax. Antibiotics can work, and their antibiotic of choice was one of those really nasty ones that almost killed me when they gave it to me for a sinus infection called Cipro. Oh, yes. Those are those chlorofluoroquine, whatever they're called.
Yeah.
And those are like this next generation antibiotics that cause all kinds of weird issues with your like Achilles tendon and things.
Yeah.
People have had permanent damage from that, and I was given that before I knew about any of that, and that's exactly what happened. My Achilles tendon went. I was in pain for years after that. But it's the antibiotics that cause that, and it can cause that like eons after even taking it.
Yeah,
so just be aware.
Oh my God! Those.
Yeah, I was right. These are spores.
Chlorofluorohydrocarbons or something like that.
It's fluorocholine. Hold on. It's the family of antibiotics.
Yeah.
That's Cipro. So family,
which is very strong.
Super
wipes
strong.
Out everything. Just wipes everything.
Ciprofloxacin is the full name. Yeah, fluoroquinolones. That's what they are. They're like the quinolone or quolones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Levaquin was the other one. Avelox is the one that literally almost gave me a stroke. My doctor, when I told her the reaction I was having to that, and I had to force myself to take it at night when I was sleeping because it would make the whole room spin and I couldn't think straight. Every time I took it, but I was so sick. She's like, "Oh my God, you could have stroked out from that. It means you were having a horrible reaction." I was like,
Thanks,
"No way."
Doc.
Yeah. So that stuff is Cipro, Levaquin, Avelox, and Floxin. Hold on, I'm clicking on it. All four of these, Floxin, and many others, and their dangers. This is actually a document from a website called the Legal Examiner. Like I said, before taking an antibiotic in the fluoroquinolone, the quolone family, Cipro, Levaquin, Floxin, Avelox, Tequin, Noroxin, Maxaquin, Trovan, Raxar, Zagam. I haven't even heard of half of these. Clinoxin, I've heard of. Quixin, Acuflox, Penetrax. Holy crap!
Penetrax, that sounds interesting.
Ciproxin, Synoxin, Vigomox, and Factive, just to name a few. Please do your research. This family of antibiotics carries some very dangerous side effects, and even the FDA has put out a black box warning on these drugs. Before today, I didn't even know about this family of antibiotics. Wow, look at somebody else. I didn't either. But what I have learned after being prescribed Avelox, along with ibuprofen, has opened my eyes and reinforced what we should do, which is educate yourself before you vaccinate or take any prescription medications. Wow.
That's awesome. I mean, where do they pull these names out of? You know what I mean? It sounds like the freaking Al-Qaeda fighter names. You know what I mean?
Well, look at this girl was given Avelox for a sinus infection.
Yeah, and nearly killed her, huh?
I'm looking at what happened. I guess she had a pretty bad reaction. I'm telling you, the whole room, I couldn't focus, I couldn't think, and the whole room moved when I took this stuff. I never had a reaction like that to antibiotics.
It's amazing.
It says through all this whole thing, she gave me a prescription for an antibiotic called Avelox. I asked her about the side effects because I'd never heard of this antibiotic before, and she said the normal things you would expect to hear. She also gave me something called Fluxolol, and this is a one-time-a-day pill by mouth, and she gave me ibuprofen for the pain. I had the prescriptions returned home. Avelox is also used for pneumonia in hospitals, and it is supposed to be used as a last resort and only when the patient's life is in danger. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. Antibiotics known as fluoroquinolones have been associated with some or all of the following adverse drug reactions: tendinitis, tendon rupture,
Jeez.
ligament, joint, and muscle damage, which is what I was telling you. Your descendant, vision damage, hearing loss, taste perversion, peripheral neuropathy, which is tingling and burning sensations.
Neuropathy.
Neuropathy, insomnia, nightmares, anxiety attacks, depersonalization, cognitive disorders, brain, heart, kidney, liver, pancreas, blood, and endocrine disorders, severe psychotic reactions, suicidal thoughts or actions, as well as gastrointestinal damage.
Oh, give me some for dinner.
Now, these doctors are prescribing this shit like candy.
They are. It's so...
I was given this for a sinus infection, and so was she, apparently.
And your life wasn't in danger, neither
was
hers.
No, it was not.
Yeah.
How crazy is that?
That's insane.
Now, Cipro is one of the antibiotics on that list, and it is the antibiotic of choice to treat anthrax inhalation. My personal opinion is, if it has been proven that you have inhaled anthrax, I probably would take the antibiotic, to be honest. Because anthrax can be deadly.
Yeah.
And so you want to get something. So let's go back here really quick to how do people get infected with anthrax. I don't know, we might as well do the bioterror updates on how to protect yourself. People get infected with anthrax when spores get into the body. When anthrax spores get inside the body, they can be activated. When they become active, the bacteria multiply, spread out in the body, and produce toxins, causing severe illness. This can happen when people breathe the spores, eat food, or drink water that are contaminated with the spores, or get spores in a cut or a scrape in the skin. And that is why I was saying be careful when you're gardening. Because I don't put my gloves on. I garden without gloves. But then I get mad because my nails get so dirty. But you should be really careful, because who doesn't have a cut or a scrape or something on their hands,
Mosquito bites,
or something, right.
Sure.
It says it is very uncommon, though, in the United States. But you most certainly can get it. It is found in soil. And though anthrax is rare in the United States, sporadic outbreaks do occur in wild and domestic grazing animals such as cattle and deer. Anthrax is more common, though, in developing countries that do not have veterinary public health programs that routinely vaccinate animals against anthrax. Now, I didn't know that they were vaccinating animals against anthrax.
I didn't either.
I knew that the Gulf War vets, the first round, a lot of my friends who went in for George Bush Sr.'s foray in Iraq, all were given anthrax vaccines.
Yep.
And those had the squalene adjuvant in it, and many of them blame their infertility now on that vaccination, as well as some of their autoimmune problems.
That's right.
All right, well, I'm going to end our talking about all the bad things now, I think.
Oh, okay. I mean, can I just add one more tiny
go
little
for
thing?
it. Yeah, go for it.
It's just all of these doctors prescribing all these hardcore antibiotics like candy only succeeds to make the antibiotic resistant things that are out there that much stronger.
Well, not only that, but as it's like being a druggie or something where you need more. I mean, as these antibiotics are in their second, third, and fourth generation of strongness now, right? Like the old days of taking Keflex, right? Or amoxicillin. That's what they used to give me as a teenager, and that stuff worked great. But those were like generation 1 antibiotics, and when I asked my doctor, like, why are you giving me one of those fluoroquinolones that I'm so obviously allergic to? She's like, well, you might not be allergic to them. They're just really strong. Yeah. Because those ones that we used to give out don't work anymore.
Right, because then they graduated to, like, penicillin. You know what I mean? And then they started graduating from that. And now,
I think penicillin was actually the original. Amoxicillin was for people who were allergic to penicillin.
Right.
My mom is very allergic to penicillin.
Is she? Yeah. But you can see the progression. It's just, they've created this problem. And then, with all the antibacterial soaps that are on the market.
Oh my God. And in that antibacterial soap, they had that freaking, I just lost it. What was that stuff? And it's an endocrine disruptor in children.
Yeah.
What the hell was it? They pulled it out of most of the antibacterial products now.
Triclosan. Triclosan, yeah. Something like that. That's it.
Oh, yeah, so insane about the old sulfa drugs are not as effective on stuff anymore. Sulfa drugs I had a really bad reaction to because of the sulfur as well. They used to give those for, like, bacterial infections and bladder infections, urinary tract, that type of thing.
Yeah. Oh, my God. This stuff just makes you sick. I mean, it's just, it's creating more problems than it solves.
Yeah, we need to come up with something else. But speaking of that, what a great segue. Let me scroll back up because late last night, I napped. I crashed out after dinner. I was just so out of it with this cold. But I woke up about 1 a.m. and then tried to do catch-up and get my shows cut for this weekend. So I was up again late, but I came across a great story out of phys.org. A team unearths what may be a secret weapon against antibiotic resistance.
Oh!
Yeah, it's a fungus. So I thought it was pretty interesting. A fungus living in the soils of Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia! That's the boy that does the weather reports. It's up in Nova Scotia. Could offer new hope in the pressing battle against drug-resistant germs that kill tens of thousands of people every year, including ones considered a serious global threat. A team of researchers led by McMaster University has discovered a fungus-derived molecule known as AMA, asparagillomarsamine A, which is able to disarm one of the most dangerous antibiotic-resistant genes, which is the NDM1 or the New Delhi metallo-beta-lactamase 1, identified by the World Health Organization as a global public health threat. I've never heard of it before, but
wow.
Hey, I'd believe it. This is public enemy number one, says Jerry Wright, director of the Michael G. DeGroote Institute for Infectious Disease Research at McMaster University. It came out of nowhere, and it has spread everywhere, and it has basically killed our last resource of antibiotics, the last pill on the shelf used to treat serious infections, he says. Did you just hear that?
Yeah, I did.
How convenient is that?
It really is convenient now, isn't it?
I haven't heard of this at all yet. And it just got rid of, like, the last useful antibiotic, and it spread everywhere. It came out of nowhere. It killed every last hope to be protected by antibiotics. How nice is that? But discovering the properties of this fungus-derived molecule, it has been critical because it provides a means to target and rapidly block the drug-resistant pathogens that render this is like really hard, carbapenem antibiotics, which is a class of drugs similar to penicillin, ineffective. Simply put, this molecule, this Aspergillus versicolor fungus, knocks out MDM1 so the antibiotics can do their job. So it actually attacks the pathogen so the antibiotics can get in then and attack it. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
That's a bit different way to go about attacking things, is to weaken the protections of the pathogen than to allow the drugs to get in.
Exactly. That seems more logical, doesn't it?
Yeah, instead of filling us with all kinds of adjuvants and whatever, for sure.
Yeah, and it's found in Nova Scotia?
Nova Scotia, yeah.
Wow.
Seeking an answer to the riddle of resistance in the natural environment is a far more promising approach than trying to discover new antibiotics, a challenge which has perplexed scientists for decades. No new classes of antibiotics have been discovered since the late 80s. So I guess all these fluoroquinolones weren't a new class. They just were more powerful. leaving physicians very few tools to fight life-threatening infections. Not only do we have the emergence of an antibiotic-resistant gene that is targeting the last drug resources that we have left, but it is carried by organisms that cause all sorts of challenging diseases and that are already multi-drug resistant. It has been found not only in clinics, but in the environment in such as contaminated water in South Asia, which has contributed to its spread all over the globe. Our thinking was that if we could find a molecule that blocks NDM1, these antibiotics would then again be useful. This team from McMaster, University of British Columbia, and the Cardiff Institute in Wales created a sophisticated screening method to take NDM1 gene, combine it with a harmless E. coli bacteria, and then isolate a molecule capable of stopping NDM1 in its tracks. And apparently they have. The findings have been published in the online current edition of the Journal of Nature. Quote, antibiotic resistance is one of the top public health concerns in Canada and internationally, and it represents a research priority for the Canadian Institute of Health. It is exciting to see Canadian researchers finding innovative strategies to overcome antimicrobial resistance, said the director of the CIHR Institute. So there you go. We kind of left that on a happy note. So look at no more antibiotics. Let's find some fungi to get rid of the fungus among us.
My mom's a nurse. She says this issue is the thing that scares her the most. She said that when I was there last couple days ago.
What was that?
She said that this antibiotic resistance is what scares her the most.
Yeah, absolutely, because it means that it could just sweep over us fast.
Sure. Yeah,
and there will be no remedy to that. And it's like the old days. I mean, I think that that's one of the reasons why it's like the days of old before antibiotics. That's why people died. Someone was just talking about in the Civil War where most of the deaths were people dying from the infection, not from the wound, but from the infection that came from the wounds because they didn't have antibiotics. All right, well, listen, we are plumb out of time on this happy, sunny, warm Friday. So thank you so much for being on today, Lady Pipple. You have an awesome, awesome weekend. Thank you to Mr. Brandon Turmaville for the surprise visit. That was great.
Yay,
you should do that more often. I love having him on and listening to his assessment of things. Thank you guys for hanging out with us for a Friday. Everybody make sure you crack whatever your happy poison is tonight. I'm going to try it even with sniffles. It is Friday. And maybe I will hang out this weekend. I don't know. We'll have to see how I feel. And if we go visit Grandpa. All right, guys. Everybody have a happy Friday. I'll stick around here for a little while. Make sure you stick around tonight. Catch Brandon's new episode tonight, 9 o'clock. Mr. Jimmy Funky. Yoo-hoo! And everybody else who's on. All right. We'll catch you guys later on. Take care. Bye.